Okay. Now that you're here, I guess we can call the meeting to order. Oh, it's not even quite 7. This is the ABC Public Safety Committee meeting for July for ANC 1C. I'm Ted Guthrie, the chair of the committee. Also here are Mirra Irani and Jacob Bowles. The only items that we have on the agenda tonight are the report from the MPD, and I saw that Riley is here, I believe. Yeah, Riley. I'm not sure how we get you up, but Amir, can you get Riley up as talking?
Yes, let me do that.
He should be up right now.
Okay, thanks. Riley, are you there? He mentioned that he has new equipment, so he may be having some challenges with it.
Riley, you're on mute.
There you are. You're still on mute. There you are. Okay.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes. You're in E.
All right. So I have good news. It's basically all crimes are down, and this is from June 7 to July 7. We got all crimes down from 51 to 38. We have violent crimes down from 9 to 3. We got property crimes down from 42 to 35. The 3 crimes I wanted to briefly go over were the 3 robberies that we had. They're all open cases right now that detectives are looking into. The first one was on June 28th around 10 p.m. It happened in the 2000 block of 19th Street, and the victim was entering the lobby of an apartment when a suspect followed the victim in, brandished a camo colored handgun, and taken was a purse and an iPhone. The second one was on the 16th of June around 4:20 a.m. in the 1700 block of Columbia Road. This was a robbery gun where 3 suspects entered the business, attempted to break into the ATM, while 1 suspect held a handgun and told the victim to sit down. That suspect took a lighter and cigarette paper, and when they couldn't access the ATM, they all fled. And the third robbery was on the 5th of June around 7:10 p.m. It happened in the 2400 block of 18th Street. I believe it was the East Alley. And 2 suspects approached the victim, engaged in conversation, brandished a handgun, and then took a bag, like a fanny pack, which contained cash and passports. And other than that, which were specific to 303, we have seen a crime trend of armed carjackings that occurred across DC, to include the 3rd District, during a short period of time in the past month, where subjects would hop out of a vehicle and approach the vehicle in front and brandish a handgun and take the victim's vehicle. Or another tactic was lightly rear-end the victim's vehicle. Then when the driver got out to inspect the vehicle and see what happened, they brandished the gun, take the vehicle, and it's something that we've seen in the past in DC, but there was a short spike, and then MPD was able to make multiple arrests, which appears to have stopped that crime trend. I haven't seen any more since the arrests. And in addition to going over these stats, I believe the commander may be on the line. He was going to join in on this meeting.
Let's see whether we've got him there.
I do see Commander Emmerman as an attendee, but as I'm not a host, I cannot. There we go. Okay.
Sorry, guys, I'm fixing it.
There you go. I think I'm on now. Are we?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you I won't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to just thank you for allowing me to be on here tonight. As Lieutenant Hong was alluding to, our crime is tremendously down throughout 303 as well as in the 3rd District as a whole. A lot of that we're looking at as a response to a lot of our COVID activity. With people being inside, people are really actually being more alert out on the street, which is good because it's helping us catch individuals who are still out there doing crime. And when there's less people on the street, it's also easier to get folks. We have just much more of our community is home, aware, paying attention, and calling us for things that are going on. We did actually have this morning 2 robberies in 303 that were both perpetrated by what we believe are the same individuals who actually did a 3rd robbery over at 8th and O Street. And in that case, we actually made an arrest. I'm sorry, this was yesterday morning, my apologies. And in that case, we made an arrest of 2 juveniles who we've brought over to the Office of the Attorney General for prosecuting. But these are 2 juveniles that we have seen repeatedly involved in our street robberies. So we're hoping that we have enough in our cases to have them take this seriously. But these kids, specifically these 2, we have 5 cases in the past week of robberies that these kids were doing. So it's definitely a concern, but that's really one of the other patterns that we're seeing right now. But I'm hopeful that we can finally put an end to these 2 individuals that we put into custody. I do want to just add, just real quick, I want to thank our community out there. I've received over the last couple of weeks a lot of emails of support. I know it's a very difficult time right now in our communities, a very trying time. There's a lot of issues going on. And one of the things that I want to just thank folks for is those kind words of support that we've gotten. The Metropolitan Police Department is a police department that is leaps and bounds ahead of some of these other police departments in our country when it comes to reform. But that doesn't mean that we're done reforming. It doesn't mean that we think that we're perfect and can't change. We recognize that reform is constant. Reform is something we're always going to do. And we are eager to continue to reform and want to be a part of those conversations. We want to be part of it with the city council. We want to be part of it with our communities. And I think what we're hopeful is going to happen as we start progressing in the coming weeks is we start those reforms and we start those open and honest discussions that we need to have about inequalities in policing, inequalities in housing, inequalities in job opportunities, inequalities in socioeconomic status, inequalities in our schools. It's not just inequality in policing, it's an inequality in our system of our society. We just happen to be the ones that right now are at the forefront of the attention to that. And we understand that, and we can appreciate the community's concern, and we strive to always do better. And I think that's one of the goals of reform, is to make sure that we're always trying to do that. But in the past couple of weeks, getting these emails of support from the community saying, hey, look, it's okay to support reform and support your local police department at the same time. Those are 2 things that are not independent of one another. They can coexist. And I just want to thank anybody who's on this chat, anybody who's on the Zoom who did submit those emails to us. I want to thank them, and my staff wants to thank them.
Thanks for that. That's I think that's very helpful for the community to hear. One issue, and I don't know if you can speak to this at all, but as you know, we had car traffic off of 18th, not this last weekend, but the weekend before. One of the things that a number of residents were concerned about was the large number of people who were on 18th who did not have masks on. And when I went up and down the street, one thing that I noticed was that none of the police officers were masked. And I was wondering if there was some directive from on high, why they're not being masked, and if you can give us some information on that.
Absolutely, Commissioner. So our policy for the Metropolitan Police Department is that our officers are to wear masks when they are unable to socially distance themselves. So if there's a scenario where they're in a crowd or where they're in a response place where they cannot be socially distant, they should be wearing masks. They've been provided with masks. If you run into a scenario with that where the officer isn't, please let me know and I will address it personally. I've been doing that with a lot of our officers. I will say what we have done and tried to do from a policing perspective is to reduce the amount of interaction between officers and community to prevent potential spreads of the disease between officers in the community and officers. So we've increased our telephone reporting. So we do a lot more over the phone. We do a lot more over the internet. And most calls an officer goes to, we're trying to get the resident or the business owner to come outside, so that way we don't have to put ourselves in that scenario. But the majority of the calls that I'm getting about masks and officers are seeing an officer out on the street and that they're not wearing a mask. And the scenario that I always have to ask is if they're just standing by themselves and they're down at the end of the block, that's one thing. But if they are in an area where they cannot be socially distant, our policy is that they should be wearing them, and we have equipped them to do so. So please let me know when you see something like that, and we will address it.
Okay, thank you. As I say, my observation when I was on the street both Saturday and Sunday a week ago was that none of the officers had masks on, and frequently they were congregated, as they tend to do, on 18 together. But I think part of our concern is that it doesn't give a good behavior model for the people who are on the street to follow if the police officers out on the street don't have masks on. And that's the thing that I wanted to pass on.
I agree with you 100%, Commissioner. We should be leading by example, and I agree with you on that.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone else have questions I'm not sure why, but my screen now has lots of photos and names up there, but I don't see the thing that tells me whether there are any hands raised. Does anyone have any questions?
So anyone can just unmute themselves and just start talking as it's currently organized.
Hey,
Going once?
can you hear me?
There
Yeah.
you go.
Hey, sorry, Commander and Officer. I was just, I missed what the date was for the robbery on 1700 block of Columbia Road, the business.
Riley, you have that in front of you there? I think he said it was June 16, if I recall correctly.
Okay. Do we know what business, or is that not something we're sharing?
Generally, we're probably not putting it out, but
That's fine. Well, I mean, there was an ATM involved. I can narrow it down to 2 or 3, so
yeah, I'll be honest with you, off the top of my head, I can't remember which one it was.
that's fine.
Any other questions for the commander or Selma Thompson?
Yes, I'm here, but I'm waiting for the later business.
Oh,
Thank you.
Lieutenant, do you have any information on it looks like on the map, looks like a theft. It says theft other, and it looks like California Street. Can you tell me about that one? You're on mute, by the way, if you're trying to pull. Your mic's muted, Lieutenant.
Hi, sorry about that. Because of the number of thefts, I didn't get the details for that for my report. However, I'll make a note of it, California, and when I get back to my actual desktop computer, I'll be able to look in the report system and get some details.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commander Emmerman, for joining the meeting.
My pleasure, and thank you everybody again, and be safe out there.
you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So turning to the next item of business is the MAHK, I believe. I'm always bad at putting together initials when I don't know what it stands for, but I think it's MAHK. Meetings Inc. has put in an application with ABRA to transfer a license that was formerly up on Columbia Road down to Florida Avenue for it's a tavern license, and requests some changes in the provisions of the license that have to do with the change in location and the change in operation. Is the applicant here? I didn't see you in the list, but
Andrew Klein, I'm here for the
oh,
applicant.
Andrew, hi. I didn't.
How are you, Ted?
I didn't see you and I don't see your face, but I see the name. Okay.
Okay.
You want to tell us a little about it?
Yeah, I think KJ's probably here too. He's the principal of the applicant. But this application had somewhat of a tortured history. You may recall that initially there was an application for a new tower license at that location, and there was concern that that represented a contraction of the moratorium zone. That has now been addressed because the applicant located a tavern license to transfer that is definitely within the moratorium zone. So this is a request to transfer the license, the tavern license, within the moratorium zone. Let me talk a little bit about the concept. It's quite unusual, and the idea is to blend several different services. My client is very cognizant that he's operating on a block with residences, and he's sensitive to that. But what's contemplated here is basically four different, they're not different operations because they're all blended, but in terms of profit centers, there's a barbershop, there will be retail, and then there will be coffee in the morning and the lounge area upstairs. And the lounge area is contemplated, the best example that I can give, my oldest daughter for a time lived across the street from Left Door on T Street, which was over Cleaners, and I don't think anyone really knew it was there. In fact, my daughter happened to be visiting her, and she said, "Dad, do you know what that is over the Cleaners?" And I said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do, because we did the alcohol license." So in talking to KJ, I mean, this is similar to what he contemplates here, is that you're not even going to know it's there. That's the plan. He's consulted with sound engineers. He's sensitive that, you know, there are neighbors there. And he wants to make sure that he does not disturb anyone. It's a small place. We have some renderings I'd be happy to share if I can figure out how to upload them, but if I can, you know, if I could show you those. But we're hoping to transfer the license. If there are specific concerns, we're certainly happy to work with you. My office has worked with your ANC many, many times, and certainly would be willing to do so in this situation.
Could you clarify for me what the situation will be as far as entrance and exit from the various, I don't want to call them separate businesses, but from the various parts that are making up the whole here?
Yeah.
Because the building does exist on both streets, so.
Yeah, it'll be for, I mean, the idea is to orient the activity towards Florida Avenue.
All of the.
Yeah.
Okay, because my understanding back when we were talking about this before, on the earlier application, was that the plan was to have the retail business, and I believe there was going to be a residence on the top floor.
Yeah, there still will be.
Enter and exit from Vernon. Is that no longer the plan?
KJ, you on?
Yeah, I'm on. How you guys doing?
Oh, there you are.
You want to address that?
So the plan is the first floor is the first and second floors will be accessible entrance-wise through Florida Avenue, and the top two floors, which is the third floor and the fourth floor apartment. The third floor is office space. Our internal operations will be there, and the fourth floor is an apartment, and those two will be accessible from Vernon only. So the commercial side is accessible through Florida, and the office and the residential are accessible through Vernon Street.
Okay, and that's a change from what you were talking about before, right?
Well, what we were talking about before, it's not a change, no. That's the same. The only difference is before we were trying to make sure that the addresses were applicable, per the past situation, but we've been able to address that through the transfer.
Right. my point is that my understanding when this came before us before was that the business that wasn't going to be the licensed alcohol licensed business was going to be in the basement or the Florida Avenue first floor, whichever way you want to look at it, and was going to enter and exit from Vernon. But that's no longer true. Is that correct?
That was a nuance that we were trying to pivot based upon our liquor license kind of hurdles. So now that we have a transfer, and Andrew can speak more to it, but now that we have a transfer and we're not trying to pivot, then both floors will now operate and be one establishment. So this is one whole business.
I think that's
Yes,
actually,
just so we're clear, Ted, I'm sorry, you talked about separate businesses. I mean, they're really going to all be integrated at this point. And I mean, if you need for assurance that the entrance is going to be on Florida, I mean, we can give you that. I mean, that's
my recollection was originally there was going to be an entrance to the that Florida basement level, whatever, was going to come off of Vernon underneath the main staircase to Vernon. And I guess
that still exists. That still exists there because that's a means of egress. So we
right.
close
But that's not
it.
going to be the main entrance, right?
No, that's not the main entrance at all. No, that's not the main entrance at all.
Okay. Did either of you have anything more that you wanted to say about the concept before I let some of the other folks speak?
Can Andrew share? We'd love to share the renderings. That will probably give a little bit more context.
Yep.
That would be helpful. I'm not sure how that happens. Amir, are you there?
Yes.
Can you do a share with something that Andrew has?
No, I can. Hold on 1 second.
Mayor, I think if you can promote him to panelist, I think that would let him share.
I'm not a
I'm
host.
going to get promoted. I've been promoted in 25 years.
Yeah.
Right. The problem that we're having is that Gordon, who is our tech person, is off to another meeting, and that's why he set it up with this.
So yeah, and Gordon and I are usually hosts, except, and in that case, I would be able to do it. But in this case, I'm not a host. I'm just a panelist, so I can't promote anyone.
I was wondering, because Japer has been able to do a screen share before, and I'm not quite sure how to do that. Can you do a screen share, Amir?
You should be able to. I have it on mine.
Yeah.
That you can.
I can, but I don't. What am I?
If Andrew shoots it to you.
Sure. Yeah.
Andrew,
And
can you send
would
it?
we? And Andrew, could we actually just get these plans to make them public so we could post them on the ANC website?
The
We're
plans
prepared to post them. We want to share them with you, but I don't know that we want to post them at this point.
Yeah, the actual building plans are available through DCRA, and I've actually given them access. They've been accessible to my adjacent neighbors as well. So the building plans are accessible, but these are renderings that are really proprietary. We want to go above and beyond and try to show them now, and because I think the community will be excited to see these, and they will provide a lot of context to this conversation. But I don't think that we're prepared to publicize it just yet, because again, I don't even have an opening date with COVID. We're delayed, and so I don't want to get the cart before the horse in terms of like what we're doing and how we're doing it. It's going to kill my rollout.
Yeah, certainly. I guess that would be a better question for then Amir and Ted. If we could get those proposals up for community disbursement, that would probably be expedient to this.
Yeah, I believe if Andrew can shoot them to Amir, he can get them up as a screen share.
Okay. I am attempting to do that now.
Is that what you mean by community disbursement, Japer? By putting this?
No, I was thinking any information that's been made public already probably would be best, rather than they don't want to share.
We don't want to leave them. Let's put it that way. We're happy to share them with you at this meeting, but we don't want to leave them.
Got it. Okay, so I'm looking out for your email, Andrew.
Yeah, just sent it.
Okay, still waiting for it to come through. I haven't seen it come through yet.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Okay, I still haven't received it.
Oh,
Oh, there it is. Okay.
good. Okay.
The attachment that just took a little bit. All right.
Hey, Amir, is it possible to stop recording during this particular part of showing news? We can pick up the recording once we start questions. I just want to be very...
Yeah, right. Normally it would be, but I don't think I have that option. Let me see. Because of Gordon not being here and him being the host, I don't see an option to stop recording.
Is it something that could be edited, at the after the fact?
I mean, I'm sure it can be. I have to talk to Gordon about that. But this is a public meeting right now. So do you want me to go ahead and share these now?
Andrew?
That's your call. It's your work product, so it's entirely up to you.
Okay. I think it's important for you guys to see it. I also think that it's important that, we try to respect the privacy that I have, because, it's something that we worked very, very hard on. And I would like to, try to, so if everybody can just have some, some professionalism about it, I would appreciate it. That's all I can ask, I guess. I mean,
Just so,
an article.
just so all of us are clear, the concern that you have is that potential competitors around DC in general might look at these and decide to do something similar to your concept before you can get it executed. Is that your concern?
It's that, it's news, it's blogs, it's, the rumor mill, it's just all of that stuff. I mean, you got, people that are in the house looking for information, and when my placards go up, it's, it's on Popville within hours. I mean, so anything that's out there in the public domain, people are going to publicize. I just would want to, kind of shield us from having to answer questions, because we're not ready to answer questions. We want to answer questions to our neighbors because, that's that's our responsibility here. But I don't want to have the public, and I don't want to start a marketing campaign or PR campaign. We're not prepared to do that just yet.
Yeah, in my experience, it's not unusual. I mean, normally if we were live, which obviously we aren't, we'd walk in, we'd show them to you, and then we'd walk out with them.
Right. And I just don't know how to facilitate that in a group like this, especially where we have people who are calling in who we don't even know.
No, I get it. I mean, I'm okay with I don't think that there are that many people on this call that are looking to steal this information. That's not, and that's not my point. I think what I'm saying is I hope that the neighbors on this call are here to, really address this and be,
So
have good faith.
there's no public records or any documents that we could point to other than these renderings that are proprietary?
No, there are construction documents. There are, our building permit documents are public, so, but the aesthetic, when you're looking at a building plan, you're only looking at, the bones. You're not looking at materials. You're not looking at furnishings. You're not looking at color. You're not looking at anything. But I do,
So
the
for
whole
me,
point is,
for me, I don't need that to get this to the next step. For me,
okay.
I'm ready to move this without seeing this proprietary documents.
Okay, but I think the neighbors would probably benefit because I think the concept is new. I'm okay. Let's do this, Andrew. Let's show. I'll tell you what to show, and then we can skip through. And if that's okay, I'm okay.
Yeah,
with
I don't have it, unfortunately, because of the way
so
that we're
Amir,
set up.
yeah.
Amir
So
has it.
Amir, if you can present and go to the page numbers that I request, that
Sure.
will help.
Okay.
Okay.
Do that.
Thank you. So let's go to page 3. So our idea here is to make a, community, kind of courtyard where we are opening this to whomever. It's definitely an eyesore right now. So we're planning on, spending a great deal on, making this courtyard accessible to any and everybody. It doesn't need to be just our customers. If you have ice cream, you can sit on our courtyard. We're gonna welcome you, no problem. So that's the idea to this entrance. We have a big picture window, so you know what this is. It's 4-seater barbershop. You can go to the next slide. This is a night view. So we're talking about, again, this is gonna be a high traffic area. This is something that I think will look nice in this area. It's high, it's high end. It's, something that I think would beautify the community. You can go to the next slide. Next. So the barbershop, next. So you have a 4-seater barbershop, high end. These chairs are not 6 feet apart because this was done pre-corona. However, we will stagger our appointments to try to address that. But it's, typical barbershop, but very, very high end. Next. So this is our retail. And so we're talking about high end retail that is a mix between things that you would find in Saks or Neiman's, but also, local DC area producers and purveyors as well. A couple of home goods like candles and coffee table books, things that, a guy getting his haircut or a lady coming in looking for something or getting a haircut, we'll pick up kind of an item here or there. We'll have watches, sunglasses, t-shirts, pants, items, some outerwear, and we'll have our own line of apothecary as well. Next. This is our coffee juice bar. So we've reinvented the traditional barbershop waiting room where you just thumb through magazines, and instead we'll have you, sit here and order a coffee. Each barbershop service comes with a complimentary cocktail or coffee. We're gonna have coffee from Black purveyors, coffee producers. You guys can't see me, but I'm a Black man. So this is a Black-owned business, and we're planning on using coffee purveyors that are also Black. Next. Again, another detailed look. All this furniture is custom furniture. At nighttime, you can skip one. So this door here, this mirror that you see, the curved mirror straight ahead, that mirror doubles as a door. And so this is your entrance to the speakeasy. So it's nondescript. There's no signage or anything. Next. So as you see the lady walking up, next. Now you're entering into the speakeasy, next. So this is the speakeasy stairs going up. So this is the level going up onto Vernon. Next. It's a very small, intimate bar, something like a lobby bar. We wanted it to feel like something you would see in Paris or something that you would see in London. I've been to a great deal of speakeasies in my time, and the thing that I love about them is is something that Adams Morgan doesn't have, which is, outside of, I think, the whiskey bar, there's not a lot of upscale, adult attraction. There's stuff for like college key in mid-20s, but, we're expecting this to be something that's a little more on the upscale, pre-date or post-date, kind of something that you do once a month, not something that you do once a week. We plan on being open, 4 to 5 times, and there's only about 30 seats, I believe, in here. You can skip to see the booths. So these are the booths. We have fireplaces that have been there. We're going to get those back working. They hadn't been working. Previously, this was a office space that was being operated as an Airbnb. So we've transformed this. Next slide. You have a couple intimate, booth seatings. Again, custom everything. The arches is something that we played a part because an arch is a part of a ritual. We think that a barbershop and a drink is, kind of classic American ritual. So arches play up on ritual. Next. Loose seating can be moved around. We'd like to, eventually be able to, host, things like, brand partnerships with some high-end brands. With us being so close to the new retail down at City Center, we believe that DC is really a high-end market that hasn't necessarily been tapped. And so this is it right now. This is all that I wish to share. So these are the 2 floors. And I think that you guys get an idea of, kind of the scale of this, the professionalism that's being done. Our architect is world-renowned Snarchitecture. I'm not sure if you guys know the Building Museum. They've done exhibits at the Building Museum. They've also won, tons and tons of awards. I had to compete. This idea had to go through a number of, rounds of competition to get them to sign on. So I think that speaks to the type of operator that we are, and also speaks to the idea and how it affects the community, and how I think that it's a benefit to the people of Adams Morgan and DC. But you can stop sharing now.
All right.
So the only other thing I wanted to add, and I mentioned it earlier, I think it's important to note because I think it speaks to the level of detail and concern of KJ going into this space, is that he has already engaged a acoustic consulting firm to look at the issues related to the party walls for the adjacent neighbors, so that will not be an issue. And they've already looking at the site.
Yeah, sorry. My sound engineer consultant is Arup, A-R-U-P. You can Google them, and they are literally the best sound engineering company in the entire world. I had to call in a favor for that. They would normally not take on a project this small. And so they have an office in DC. They're actually going to be on site tomorrow. So, we're going through great lengths to try to address and mitigate any potential noise to adjacent neighbors.
Okay, if there's nothing else right now, at least from Andrew and KJ.
Sorry, KJ, is that Arup.com?
Yes, A-R-U-P.
Okay, yeah.
Amir, do you see hands? I don't see any hands.
I do, yeah, so there's a couple of hands. First one that went up was Mr. Dennis James.
Dennis? You're on mute, I think, if that's you.
He is on mute. The next person is Laurie Clarke. So Laurie.
Yeah, I just unmuted. Hi, this is Laurie Clarke. I live directly across the street from the Vernon Street entrance to this building. So I had some questions about the entrance and the exit. And just to be clear, the lounge would be on what would be the second floor, the floor above the basement. And you're saying the entrance from that would be on Florida. But I think I heard you say that there'd be an exit where on the Vernon Street side, there's 2 doors. One, you go up the steps and it's to the first floor of the building above ground. and then there's a door that goes to the basement. Would the basement door be used as an entrance or exit?
I think that we do not plan to use that as an entrance. That's where we're planning on putting trash. However, because we will be serving coffee, and because the coffee bar is closest to that exit, we do, and this is, Andrew probably wants to, but we do think that potentially in the morning, people will want to come into that entrance as opposed to walking all the way around to Florida Avenue to get coffee. So, day one, no, we don't plan on using that as an entrance whatsoever. I think that we have to reserve the right to pivot if we see that, like, you live across the street. If you want to come and get a coffee, do you want to walk all the way around to Florida Avenue, or would you want to walk across the street 3 steps and go down 3 steps and grab your coffee? So no, the answer to your question is no, we don't plan on using it as an entrance, but I think logistically with social distancing, we have to keep it open that we use one entrance and one place to exit so that we can keep people flowing and not on top of one another. Even though it's a very small space, we don't expect that. I do want to be very transparent and say that I think health-wise, that may be a good option. It's not an option that we have spent a great deal thinking about, but just logistically in my mind right now, to be, again, transparent with you, I think that it's something that might be safe if we're still in this whole pandemic, situation when we open.
And are you saying that, realizing you're keeping it open as an option, are you thinking as an option when everything is open, or just in the morning when it sounds like the coffee shop will only be open in the morning?
Oh, no, definitely not in the evening, because the speakeasy is the speakeasy. It's not, nobody would be entering in Vernon, because that would kill the whole, that would kill the speakeasy kind of entrance. So no, you would have to enter the building through Florida, because we want you to go through this secret mirror. We don't want you to just walk up and grab a door and walk in. So nobody would ever be entering the speakeasy from Vernon Street. The only entrance on Vernon Street would be office or the apartment.
And what about exiting from the speakeasy? Would they exit to Florida Ave, or is there an either regular or an emergency exit onto Vernon Street?
The emergency exit is onto Vernon Street, and that's by law. We have to have that egress.
And that's the main door of Vernon Street. That would be the emergency exit?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a couple other questions, but I don't want to hog the time. If there's somebody else got their hand raised now, or if not, can I go ahead and ask my other questions?
I can't see the hand raised. Amir?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. This is Marcus Mirra, also across the street on Vernon Street.
Go ahead.
On the same topic of using that entrance on Vernon Street as an option. This is what we're trying to determine right now, whether we're trying to wrap our heads around how you'll be using this property. And because you've created an address for these separate venues on Florida, we could look at that favorably, because we're on Vernon and it's a residential street, and we'd like to keep it like that. There aren't businesses along Vernon Street, such as bars and whatnot. There's the restaurant at the very corner, but then everything else is quite residential and doesn't go into late hours. So if you tell us that you're going to keep this option open to use that as an exit, or sometimes given COVID and whatnot, it means that you are keeping this option open to just your best judgment. And we don't know what that best judgment might be. So can you please explain how you're going to utilize that entrance to commit to either not using it so much to make sure that it doesn't seem like a commercial property among our residences, or is that going to be the intention? Just be a little bit more specific about that for us so that we can understand it.
So yeah, flat out, what we're doing on Florida Avenue, between the brand new storefront to the landscape architecture to our signage to lighting, everything that we're doing for this project is on Florida Avenue. We're not making any changes to Vernon Street. So Vernon Street is absolutely not an entrance to the Speakeasy. We have 2 floors, an office space and an apartment that only can be accessed through Vernon. They can't be accessed through Florida Avenue. So those 2 have to be like, because that's how they were historically. That was a 4-story building. All of them were office spaces. And even, for before I purchased it for 6 years prior, that first floor was an Airbnb. So people entered and exited through there, daily. There was an office, above that had 5 people in it. There was another office above that had 7 people in it. So when you look at the context, to answer your question, no, we will not turn Vernon Street into a commercial zone. We're not looking to attract any attention to Vernon Street because that would detract from our vision of making this a speakeasy, a private, hush establishment that and you only know if you know. Like, we don't plan on publicizing. We're not using flyers. We're not using promoters. We have soft music. We're not turning Vernon Street into a hustle, a bustling, bar area. Like, that would be completely opposite of what we are attracting. And I think that was the reason why I wanted to, show you the renderings, is because, we have 30 seats. That's another thing too. If you think about the exiting and coming and going, we have 30 seats in that space, no more, no less. And so, we will not be entering in that. We've spent a great deal of money to make to make Florida Avenue pop, because that is where all your vehicular traffic is. That's where your walking traffic is. Like, we're not doing anything to Vernon Street to make that pop. So no way are we using that as an entrance.
Okay. But as far as the cafe, then, in regards to the cafe, you said that it would be convenient because of the location within the building that the cafe be served and receive customers through Vernon Street. So are you planning on using that?
I don't plan to, but think about it. If you live next door and I sell coffee one building over, would you want to walk out of your door and go all the way around the corner? Or would you want to walk down 2 steps and grab a coffee and go on about your business? So again, as of today, no, I do not plan on using that as an entrance to serve or what have you. But again, as a business owner, I have to, leave my options open to say, hey, what would be good business? If I find that everybody on Vernon Street loves our coffee and I have a barbershop on the other side and my barbershop guests are becoming entangled with my coffee guests, I need to find a way to separate it, because you may not come to me for a haircut, but you may love my coffee. So I don't want to, we have one reception desk on Florida Avenue that really is catered to my barbershop patrons, right? So if I find that in the morning between 8 and 10 o'clock, my barbershop patrons are not getting checked in fast enough because my coffee line is long, I got to be a business owner and I got to figure out how to make sure that my customers are happy and can get to the product in a healthy and safe and efficient manner. If not, then we're not doing our jobs. So I would love
that only is a reality when you actually place so many businesses within the same space. So if we also on the residential street start seeing the habit forming of a line outside because of COVID or because of spacing, distancing and whatnot, that will affect us. Of course, it'll entirely change the look of a residential street. It will become a commercial spot if we have lines out the door waiting to get into your cafe.
I totally understand. I totally hear you, and I don't plan to. I mean, I hope that our coffee is that good, but I don't. If we're not queuing on Vernon Street, it's not a good look for Vernon Street. It's not a good look for us. We would love to queue on Florida because that's where the space is. That's where we have the courtyard. That's where we can, we can accommodate that. We would not queue up on Vernon Street ever.
Good. All right.
Okay, Dennis, you had your hand up earlier. If you're still on, feel free to speak. I see that you are on, but okay. The next person in the queue, Selma.
Yes, thanks. I just have a question about the trash collection. At some point, you alluded to trash being on Vernon Street. Where will the dumpster be for these businesses?
Down the stairs on Vernon, that we have I don't have the plans in front of me, but down the steps on Vernon, there's a little cove there that we're creating a locked closet, and that's where we plan to house trash.
And where will they get picked up then? The trash truck goes down Vernon?
I need to probably answer that question at a later time. I don't know the answer to that. My designer and my architect probably have that answer. I don't have that answer because I'm not sure exactly where the trash gets picked up now. So I think I can assure you that I'll answer that question. If you can email me and I can get my architect to answer that question. But right now, in terms of where we plan to keep the trash, that's where we'll keep it. Where will we put it out? I think we need to put it out to, wherever the law say we need to put it out.
Well, my question, because I know those stairs on Vernon Street, and they don't meet current code, but I know they meet the old code. So I guess you'll have to cut that out?
No, those stairs are being widened. We have to widen those stairs.
And that can happen within the historic district?
Yes, we've already achieved those permits. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you very much. No more questions. Laurie?
Thanks, Selma.
I have quite a bit of concern about you storing your trash on Vernon Street. It's a residential street. There isn't room for a big trash can. You're saying you're storing it in a closet, but we have had significant rat problems on this street, and having the trash stored on Vernon Street is going to contribute to those problems.
We don't plan to, I 100% agree that we don't want rats. I've been very, very clear with my design team. I've heard about, other issues with other businesses on the street and rats. We're going to build a solid foundation, a solid structure that is going to keep out rodents and pets. The issue is we don't have space on Florida Avenue if we want to build a beautiful, landscaping for the community to store trash.
I'm across the street and I get to look at trash?
No, ma'am. It's going to be down in the stairs in a hidden cove that's being customly built. So you won't look at trash at all, ma'am. No, ma'am.
But you're widening the stairs to a cove that's going to store your trash.
No, ma'am. That's not what the widening of the stairs is for. The widening of the stairs is not specifically to store trash. The widening of the stairs is because that is now a means of egress. And we have to widen the stairs to make it fit code for the fire department. But with the widening of the stairs, we now have space to create a closet that is locked, closed, insulated, safe from pests, safe from rodents, that will allow us to house trash. Now, remember what type of business we're running as well. We're running a barbershop, we're running a retail store, we're running coffee. We don't plan on amassing trash in the amounts that will cause rodents. So, we're addressing those things. We're being very, very cognizant. Rats would do no good for my apartment that's upstairs, my business, your apartments, your condos, your residences. We absolutely are taking every single, precaution necessary to secure the trash. Now, we asked the adjacent building if we could use their trash. We have not gotten an answer from them because they have a trash compactor. We offered to enlarge that trash compactor. We have not gotten the necessary answer. in that. And so we have, went through the motions to be able to address that. The answer that I can give you right now is we have a place for trash that is secure, that will be away from rodents. And I think that's what I have right now.
But rats don't care about locks.
They need to be able to get in somehow. And I think that because we're building it from scratch and we're rebuilding it and we're not, jimmy rigging something that was already there, we have the ability to secure it from rats.
You're building a rat-proof closet?
I believe that we can build a rat-proof closet. Yes, ma'am.
There is no such thing as a rat-proof closet. Come on. I mean, certainly he's told you what he's going to do, and I bet you that it far exceeds anything any one of you can do in your residences.
But there are rat-proof containers and dumpsters, and maybe that's what KJ means when he says rat-proof. Not necessarily.
There are rat resistance. Rat proof is a word is a term like fireproof. There is no such thing. They're resistant, and there's levels of resistance. And if I want to be precise here in terms of what we're talking about.
So a rat-resistant container or closet for it. Are you planning to serve food in your lounge or barbershop or coffee shop or bar or any part of this establishment?
Yes, just like you.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say, yes, he's going to serve food. I mean, he's serving alcohol, and alcohol will be prepared, and there will be other food. So the answer to that question is yes.
So we will have food garbage in the rat-resistant container.
Yes, you will, just like you have in your house.
And but KJ, you had previously talked about getting rat-proof trash containers, and we've all seen rat-proof trash containers around the city and up on Columbia Road. I've seen them all around New York City, and in other places in Adams Morgan. Is that something that you're committing to here?
I'm going to defer to Andrew. I think that we are prepared to do what is necessary, but I'll defer to Andrew on, exactly.
Let me be clear. We're not backing off of that. It's just it's not terminology that I embrace because it's not precise. I mean, nothing is rat proof. Just as I said before, nothing is fireproof. He will do the best that can be done in terms of making the trash resistant to the infestation of rodents. It's in his interest to do that, and he will do that, and I think he's committed to doing that. I'm just troubled by the use of the term rat-proof because I don't believe that that's a standard that can be met by anyone.
Yeah, I would also echo that. It sounds like you're willing to make a full forth effort to ensure that rats aren't a continued problem on Vernon. And we've given numerous options, and it sounds like you're willing to take us up on those to ensure that it's not just some regular old plastic bin. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Sorry, if I could just jump in, I just want to, since we're on this topic, this is Lee Farmer, and I live in the building next door. And so I just want to point out that particularly in COVID times, we've been making a lot of use of our front yard. Multiple people within the building spend a lot of time out there. And so the rat issue is something that concerns us a lot. So I think we just want to point out that we have a concern given the fact that there is no such thing as actually rat proof, and those guys get very hungry. Right. I mean, they're well fed around here, but I just want to make sure that that's kind of noted by people who are in the conversation.
Yeah, I think KJ appreciates that. I mean, the concept is to deprive them of access to food, and that's what's done to drive rats away. They're looking for food. I mean, that's what it's about, and I think KJ gets that, and his designer gets that, so he's very sensitive to that.
Thanks, Andrew. And when I talk about rat proof and rat resistant, I mean, I don't want to get into like the details of what is what here, but there are very, whether it's New York City or DC, right? DC has, DOH has a list of rat-proof containers that they've bought. They call them rat-proof, right?
Yeah, I know.
All I'm saying is, let's not get caught up on whether it's rat-resistant or rat-proof. Are those lists of containers going to be used?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
One other slight concern that I have about it is that not actually like seeing the space. I have some concern that there's going to be sufficient space for all of the trash that's generated by the business. And, I don't know whether it's daily pickup or every other day sort of pickup, but I do hope that you'll really look at that closely, because we've had some problems, particularly in historic districts, where we have real limitations on what you can do and how you can store your trash and make sure that it's aesthetically okay for the historic district. There's a real challenge when you have greater use and more garbage produced than sort of the standard what I can carry out and up a few stairs. So I'm sure that you're thinking about a lot of things, but I would hope that you'll continue to keep that in mind as you go forward with this.
Yeah, I think that's useful, Ted. I mean, I think it's important that there be adequate pickup in terms of frequency. Most residences are picked up once, twice a week at best, and this business will certainly generate more trash than that, and is expected to have more frequency of pickup. You've seen the design in terms of what's intended, and certainly it does not benefit KJ's business for there to be trash piling up outside his business or rats. So, I mean, we share the concern, and it will be addressed, absolutely.
Lee, how are you? Would it be possible to entertain, again, using the trash can of the adjacent neighbors if I upgraded it, or can we talk about that and have a serious conversation about that? Right now, I've had multiple conversations with multiple people, and it doesn't seem like anyone is willing to, but is that something that would address that? I mean, could we talk about that seriously offline to
Put me on the
help
spot,
adjust those
KJ. And I have other neighbors on this call. I don't think that we're prepared, or I'm definitely not prepared to speak for any of them at this point. So
is it what I mean is there, can we have the conversation? I think I've been the one proactively asking, but nobody has necessarily been engaging me. So could we have that conversation and get to a no? Right now it hasn't been a no. It's just been, we'll see. So, I mean, if there is a no, then okay, that's you guys' prerogative, but I just want to at least be able to at least entertain that conversation. I think that makes the most sense. You guys have the space, I can upgrade it, and we can work together as a community.
yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to the rest of the owners in my building.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis, are you able to unmute your line? Okay, let's just keep going down the list. There's Lee Carter.
Yes, it's Lee Carter and Andrew Schumann. We're long-term residents of the Carswell next door. 25 years. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. We have a lot of concern. I mean, obviously, when we moved to Adams Morgan, we knew it was Adams Morgan, but 18th Street is one thing. Coming up into the residential part of Vernon Street, in our mind, is another. And just the whole two addresses thing has bothered us from the very start. One thing I noticed in the renderings of the Florida Avenue side is you don't even show the windows on the Carswell. I mean, these are people's bedrooms, school teachers who have to go to work, really early in the morning. These are people's living rooms. These are people's patios, and they're steps away from this, whatever is going to be this cafe garden area. We need to have a very much of a clear understanding about that. We need a clear understanding about noise. Me and Andrew are in retirement age, and while we had a good time in our day, we're not willing to be up at 2 a.m, you know, trying to calm down noise. Yeah, we are very concerned about the rat situation. And while I can't speak for all the neighbors in the Carswell, I can definitely say that Andrew and I are absolutely a no on the use of our dumpster area. We can barely keep our trash and dumpster area under control as just our little condo, much less adding a food and beverage and barbershop trash situation to that. You have anything else, Andrew, you're concerned about?
Well, just as I'm actually an ex-bartender for a long time in DC. At the Child Herald, people might remember the Child Herald, a long-time DC establishment, and some other bars. But when we moved to this address 25 years ago, there was no liquor establishment on Vernon Street or on Florida Avenue here. And I don't think there was one for a long time before that. I don't know, but there hasn't been for 25 years. And now you're talking about a liquor establishment.
I mean, Chief Ike's is one thing.
Yeah.
It's up on Columbia Road.
I spent a lot of time at Chief Ike's.
Yeah, we did in our youth.
Where you got your liquor license from. And I'm not sure that most of our neighbors would want to be living next door to any behavior that went on at Chief Ike's, which was not only a lot of alcohol, but a lot of drugs as well.
And we just need to be really clear on, you know, that there's a big difference between Columbia Road establishment and the party and everything that goes on there. We understand that.
18th Street as well.
But you know, Florida Avenue right there has never been a big bar restaurant area. The windows to the back of Vernon, our condo, are just steps away from the entrance of this barbershop speakeasy. And, you know, there's older people in the building and there's younger people that have to get up and work. And it's just it's not the same, you know. Chief Ike's is not Vernon Street. I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
You
also mentioned that, you know, you've had to enlarge the steps on Vernon Street, I guess for code. That code is for entrance and egress. So even though you're being slippery on, I don't want to use that as entrance or egress, it's going to be used. You're trying to have it both ways on this establishment and this location of front door and back door. And it's been slippery from the start.
With the two addresses, it's just been kind of, just for us, I'm not speaking for the whole building, but for us, using the Florida Avenue address, which is not a real address, trying to get that first stab at the liquor license, to us just didn't shout good faith.
Are there any new points here?
I'm sorry.
This is Jim Ball. I have a new point.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Jim Ball.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what new point meant. Who said that?
Commissioner Bowles, I'm sorry, we've just heard these points numerous times. So.
People have had their hands raised. Let's please go in order. The next person to speak is Brian Barry. You've had your hand up for a while. Go ahead.
Hey, I just had a quick question. Is this the permit from Infusion, or is this? Sorry,
you talking about the license?
Yeah, the license. Is the license transferred?
Last in use at Chief Ike's.
Okay, so this isn't the one that's because it's the same address. It's a little confusing. This isn't the one that the ANC approved for Infusion a couple years ago, but hasn't been used yet.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thanks, Brian. George Bowman.
Hi, my name is George Bowman. I live next door. My apartment has its own front door at 1811 on Florida, right next door. And I met KJ. Hi, KJ. I did just happen to notice in your pictures of your outdoor space that it looks like you put a big opaque wall right in front of my living room window. hope we could maybe work on that oversight. I know Lee mentioned that you didn't show the windows on our building, but it looks like mine is like completely covered up by the opaque wall on the west side. So
no, that's just George, I'm sorry to cut you off. That's literally just for rendering purposes. That's not a renderings are just for, kind of context. It's not an accurate point by point description. It's not, so anything, we were only trying to show and highlight what we were doing on that space. Disregard, anything to that building. No windows will be covered up. That's not.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that you knew, because I like my window, like my view.
Absolutely. You've been great.
Thank you.
There were a couple questions from Dennis James, who apparently is having problems with his connection with this meeting, that are about the full extent of the licensed premise. You can confirm this, Andrew or KJ, but my understanding is the licensed premise will be all of the basement level, all of the first floor level will be part of the licensed premise. Is that?
That's correct. That's correct.
And there isn't a separate trash area for the upper part of that.
Because the apartment, the office and the apartment?
No. When KJ was talking about the trash situation, he was talking about trash that was generated on the basement level, to me, from what he was saying, as opposed to the speakeasy level.
No, it's both.
It's both. Okay.
Yeah.
And let me see. So alcohol will be available in the barbershop portion. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's all his questions. Amir, who else is? Amir, are you there?
Yes, Jim, if you're ready, go ahead. Otherwise, next person would be Nick.
I'm ready. Do you want to call Nick or you want to call me?
No, Jim, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Ball, and I am the former owner of L'Enfant Cafe, which operated on the corner of 18th Street and extended down along our patio into Vernon Street. KJ, if you want some assistance in discussing the rat problem, I have raised my hand to lend you some insight into the continuing over 20 years rat problem that is, I think the solution here is twofold. One, you have to take care of what you do on your side with your garbage. And two, is it's a bit of an endeavoring from the neighbors to continue not housing them in abetted areas that can abet them. So that's been an ongoing problem. I'd share some insight with that. But my focus is on your late night activity. And just a test for understanding, for your late night activity, the only entrance that you will use for that is the Florida side of the Florida Avenue address. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, now if I could ask a follow-up question, which is, will that be also the only exit for the late night activity, except for in the event of a fire or emergency?
No.
Okay, you may have a problem with that. At L'Enfant, we had two exits similar to what you have, but one was on 18th Street and one was on Vernon Street. We did not use the Vernon Street exit after a certain hour, and that was not part of a voluntary agreement, which we did have, but we just did that voluntarily on our own. So with regard to your operating hours, there's been an email going around saying that you are applying for a license that is an upper 18th Street situation. It's not what we are down here. But my understanding is you're applying for a class retail CR license, asking for the maximum allowable hours by law. Is that correct?
It's
so,
a
Andrew
CT,
can speak to that.
CT? Okay.
Yeah.
So just to correct that statement, every one of the 7 businesses on that corner all have a CR, one has a CT, and all have the maximum allowable hours by law. And then so that's a misstatement that's been put out there. So I want to clarify for the group that that is incorrect, and basically it's an ignorant statement, and it's wrong. So you're applying for nothing that any of the businesses we already have. Now, we also all have voluntary agreements with the different neighborhood parties that are impacted by our operations. And I would suggest that you might engage in that option as you further your processing here. That's my only comment. So just to confirm, you will be considering using the Vernon Street for late night exiting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay. Next person was Nick. So go right ahead.
Hi, this is Nick, president of the Recook Neighborhood Association. Thank you, KJ, for presenting and showing the renderings of the new business. I think the courtyard looks beautiful. I'm excited to welcome another Black-owned business to the neighborhood, and especially 3 businesses in one: a coffee shop, a barber shop, and a speakeasy. It looks great. It's a great new concept for the neighborhood, and I, for one, am very excited to have this in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for your concise comment. Next person is Piper. Okay. Alan Roth.
Hi, thank you.
Sorry, this
Yep.
is Piper.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind, I hadn't hit unmute. I apologize. I live next door in the Carswell on the 3rd floor, and have 2 questions. One to follow up on the hours just now. I didn't follow what the actual hours that are being proposed would be. And then also would like to hear more in detail about the sound. It's been understandably during COVID, as we're all working from home, quite a challenge to have all the construction going on. And I understand that construction is not the normal operations that we'll have in the business, but would like to have more detail about that, and then understand what, if any, further action we would have if there's still a lot of noise, because it's something that's directly, I share a wall with the bedroom and share a wall in my living space, so that'd be helpful. And then also just to echo from Nick, I think it is exciting to think about a Black-owned business if we're able to reach something that works for everybody. I just attended a workshop yesterday actually about Black Broadway and some of the history of DC, so it's exciting to hear about ideas, and hopefully we can reach something that works for everybody.
Thanks, Piper. In terms of the soundproofing, I don't know that, and KJ, you can chime in if it's different, but I don't know at this point that we can tell you exactly what will be done. If you look up ARUP, you'll see that they certainly have a great reputation in terms of addressing these issues, but in as much as we haven't gotten the recommendations back yet, we don't know exactly what they're going to be. The only thing that we can tell you is going into this project, KJ has not gone into it not having thought about this issue and how to make sure that you are not disturbed in your residence. So, I mean, it's I wish we could tell you more than that at this point, but not having the report back, we can't tell you exactly what it is that they're going to propose to be done, but happy to have further conversations about that as we get additional information. KJ, is there anything to add to that at this point? We don't really know, do we?
No, their first site visit is tomorrow, actually. So we just retained them. And again, in the process of building, we got to, kind of, it's when you get to the furring and the insulation phase, that's where you get some sound, kind of instruction. And we, again, if you look up ARUP, I had to shake a lot of trees to get them to agree to do this for this small of a project. So we are taking the proper precautions, but we do not know exactly what they're going to recommend. But I can assure you that whatever they recommend, I'm going to more than likely do it as long as it's within, a budget that I can afford. So we're going to do everything possible to mitigate sound as much as possible. Again, because we have a residence in that building as well, so it's within my best interest to make sure that the resident is not disturbed, as well as the adjacent neighbors. So.
No, I appreciate that, and I think the thing that concerns me here is most of us are owners in this building, so I feel like there may be a slightly more of a tolerance for somebody who's renting, and I'm curious if, when all is said and done, if there's not, if it's still very loud and there's not enough soundproofing. I mean, without knowing right now, it sounds like there's a lot of uncertainty, but if we get through this process, what kind of recourse would we have as people who live next door and don't have means to move anywhere else?
Andrew can probably speak to that. I don't know what.
I mean, you could protest the renewal of the ABC license to the extent that any noise was in excess of sound limits in the DC regulations. Then you could complain to DCRA. I mean, there are a number of things that you could do as an adjacent property owner.
Sorry, if I could just jump in again. This is Lee Farmer again. Sorry, because this was the topic I was concerned about as well. I live right below Piper. I also share a wall with that building. So what you're telling us, though, is that throughout all the assurances and kind of whatever soundproofing is done, if it is not enough, and I find myself unable to sleep because there's noise going on next door to 3 o'clock in the morning, that I have no recourse except to protest the license the next time it comes up for renewal.
I don't think that's what I said.
I think you did. Unless it's above a certain decibel level, right? So I either have the choice to invite someone into my house late at night to measure the noise, or I can protest the license the next time it comes up. What other recourse do I have without waiting for the next renewal?
Actually, your property is in residential, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the other recourse you have is to file a complaint with ABRA. There's a regulation which says that if noise from a licensed establishment is audible in your residence and you live on property that is in residential, that is a violation per se.
And how do I prove that?
The investigators come, and if they hear it, there's a violation. I mean, we're working hard to
Lee,
avoid
this
that.
is Japer.
Yes.
So I'm going through this with a person that lives off of 17th Street in Kalorama. And yeah, you can just go through ABRA to get that complaint. Amir should know how to facilitate that, but there is a process.
All right, thank you.
But let me be clear, we want to avoid that. We don't want you there. You asked what the relief is, but we don't expect you to get there. And that's why KJ has engaged a very reputable firm to be proactive about these issues and assure that you don't have a problem.
So, and in the chat, I put up the ABRA page, where at the bottom of that page, you can see that there's a link where you can file a complaint online to ABRA about noise complaints.
And can we look back for just a moment on the hours? I'm afraid I missed the clarification there, but I had heard 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., but it sounds like that's actually not correct.
No, those are the hours. Those are the requested hours.
Okay. So the next person in line to speak was Alan Raw.
Thanks, Amir. I want to ask a specific question about an item in the application, and then just make a couple of comments. The summer garden and sidewalk cafe that's applied for, where would those be located?
On Florida Avenue.
And the hours of those, I guess what I'm having a hard time grappling with is, on the one hand, you're talking about a speakeasy, the kind of the concept of which that you described is something that is sort of, tucked away upstairs where you know, it's, I don't, you know, I wouldn't call it a secret per se, but something that is sort of hidden and unobtrusive. And on the other hand, you've got this alcohol license out there with a summer garden and sidewalk cafe. And it's hard for me to see how these two things fit together.
Uh-oh.
Did
Is
I
there a
lose you?
question?
Yeah, it's a question.
I mean, the idea is to maintain flexibility and have outside seating. As we've explained, there are 4 components to this business, and the idea is that that space would be available for branding events and for other type activity. The main, in terms of alcohol service, will be on the 2nd floor in on the speakeasy area that we've described.
But if I understood the answer to Dennis's question earlier, this license would also encompass the 1st floor?
Correct.
So you could have drinks served at the barber shop, drinks served at the cafe, people walking around the retail space with a drink in their hand?
Correct.
So that's a substantial expansion from what you were applying for 6 months ago.
Alan, we're not here to talk about what we applied for 6 months ago. You torpedoed that application. We're on this application.
Well, I'm just asking a question. Is that a substantial expansion?
I don't know. I'm not prepared to talk about what we've, I don't know. I haven't looked at what we applied for 6 months ago.
Well, you and Sedone were KJ's attorneys, so.
I understand that, but we're here on this application, Alan. We're not.
I understand. I'm just for the edification of the ANC, I'm asking, is it?
I mean, we were greatly constrained by that application for issues that you raised. So we've gone in another direction. We're transferring a license in, and we don't have those constraints anymore.
Andrew, I understand. For the edification of the commissioners who 6 months ago protested the license on various grounds, I'm asking for their benefit. I think you've answered the question. It is a substantial expansion of what it was that was applied for 6 months ago, right?
I don't believe that that's correct, but I'm not prepared to say that I studied the previous application before coming into tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
I totally see where you're going. But I mean, it's Ted, myself, and Amir here.
Yeah.
And I think we understand the new parameters of this different license. I
Okay.
will say that is definitely a good point to bring up at the full commission, or something that Ted or Amir should bring up once we go through that, because we have a brand new commissioner and then others who haven't been on the committee that aren't as well versed in these situations.
Okay, fair enough. So let me just make this point. Andrew began at the very start of this meeting, and I think we've just reinforced this application of this applicant. We've got a very tortured history here. We're here tonight in a somewhat different procedural posture than last January, but the underlying issues justifying an ANC protest are basically the same. I think, you know, the ANC, the KCA, and 23 neighbors on Vernon Street, including 12 who live in the Carswell condominium immediately next door, and others who live directly across the street, as well as other neighbors who live on the street, filed a protest several months ago. They moved to dismiss the application on grounds that are no longer relevant here, but the ABC board agreed with us and refused to grant that application. But the fundamental underlying point here that I think various people have tried to make in different ways is that this building is basically a row house, and with the exception of 2 other row houses immediately adjacent to it, 1802 and 1804 Vernon Street, those 3 row houses happen to be mixed use zoned, but every other building on Vernon Street is zoned residential. It's a residential street. It's a one-way street. It's a quiet street. And basically what KJ has done and what Andrew have done and I understand why they've done it, is they've come back seeking to transfer to the very, very same row house on the very same street, a tavern license that he recently purchased out of safekeeping from somebody who used to operate on a commercial section of Columbia Road. And the tavern is just as inappropriate for this location as it was 6 months ago, and maybe more so, because now they're proposing to expand it not only from what was the ground floor, not the ground floor, but the first floor of this row house, now down into the basement, into a more expansive use. And so I think we're just asking as neighbors that the ANC join with us to protest this application on the several grounds that are provided in the statute and the regulations. And we thank you for the time you've taken to listen to everybody tonight. And we hope that the ANC will move forward with those several grounds of protest.
Thanks, Alan. Who do we have up next, Amir?
Cassie.
Hello.
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 Of course, I've been listening and hearing everything and everyone's concern. But my major concern, I'm at 1812 Vernon Street. My apartment is basically, it is in the back, which means I see everything on Florida Avenue, including the building next door, which is 1806. So that means that if you have that cute little garden out there, people sitting out there, and anyone, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone can stop and sit there, the noise that I have to listen to, especially late at night, the noise, not to mention smoking, which very much irritates my throat. I'm just throwing it out there because that is very much a concern for me. That's it.
Thanks, Cassie. Andrew, KJ,
Yes.
anything you want to respond to about smoking that might go on right outside there?
I mean, we can take a look at that.
Okay. So it looks like everyone that has...
Don't forget about the noise now, because I can see everything that goes on in that yard because I'm one of those big windows on that side. So I catch all the noise and everything. That's it again.
Commissioner Rane, this is Laurie Clarke. May I ask a follow-up question?
Please, now that everyone has spoken, go right ahead, Laurie.
Sure. So as Jim Ball confirmed, there's going to be late night exit onto Vernon Street from the lounge and the other.
I asked that, Laurie. I didn't confirm that.
Fair enough, but it was confirmed for us in response to your question. And
that's different.
Your point well taken. I misspoke, but the point is that they will be exiting from what's a basement entrance to Vernon Street late at night at your 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. closings. Are you planning to put somebody there to make sure they're not bringing alcohol, bringing trash out? There are drunk people leaving out the back exit onto Vernon Street. As Alan Roth has very clearly and eloquently said, it's a residential street.
Yes, there will be a manned personnel at that exit. Yes, it will be.
Yeah, I think that's an issue that we can work with you on, definitely. If there's a willingness to work. I mean, I'm not hearing much of a willingness to work with us, but if there is, we're certainly willing to work with you and address many of the issues that we've heard tonight.
I think you will find that these neighbors on Vernon Street are very willing to work with businesses that are responsible and willing to work with us.
Great.
And then my final question on that, excuse me, is there are windows on the ground floor level or the first floor level, which is where the speakeasy will be. What are we going to see from Vernon Street in or out those windows?
Nothing. The windows will be, I forget the material, but you won't be able to see in.
Will there be curtains or something over the windows?
No, there'll be a material that shades the actual images. It might be a shadow. I'd have to defer to my design team and get you a specific material. But no, it will be it needs to be a darkened, kind of sophisticated space. So no, you won't be able to see inside. But because it's historic, we cannot change those windows. So the windows will still look.
But there'll be window coverings, just to be clear.
Exactly.
Is that where you're going to have the I'm blanking on the word. There's the round seating, like the booths, excuse me.
What's the question again?
Are the booths going to be where the windows are?
There's only two windows. There's only a window in the front and a window in the back. There's no windows on the sides. So the booth seatings are on the sides.
Okay, so the booth seatings are not Vernon Street sides.
I don't know how to answer that question because when you say Vernon Street side, there's only one window on Vernon Street.
Well, there are two windows right next to each other.
Okay.
And what is going to be directly in front of those windows?
What's going to be directly in front of the windows?
Inside the lounge speakeasy.
That's seating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Is it Anitza?
Annika?
Annika? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a couple of questions. I mean, one was just going back to the internal building-to-building noise transmission. And I know you said you don't have ARP's recommendations yet, and they are a reputable firm, but I guess we would need some kind of, assurances that some or any of those recommendations would actually be implemented. But second would be how you can control or would control after hours noise, because even when people are just walking by on the street, I'm on the second floor, which is on the Florida Avenue side. It's the third floor above the street level, and my bedroom is out over Florida Avenue. And so if you have people coming in and out of this building late at night, whether they're just entering and exiting and talking, or they're standing or sitting around in a beer garden, that sound is quite loud. We can hear it in our living room. We can certainly hear it in our bedroom. And I know it will be disruptive to everyone's sleep, throughout the entire building. And we have bedrooms up and down the entire, vertical elevation of our building on the Florida Avenue side. So how would you control, the volume of noise after hours for people both entering and exiting the building, as well as actually just occupying that garden space on the Florida Avenue side of the building?
Well, I mean, keep in mind, this is a small space, and we're not talking about big numbers here. So, I mean, in terms of people coming in and out, I mean, it's not a Costco. I mean, it's a very small space.
It only takes one or two.
Yes,
I mean, I can hear people break up on the sidewalk, a couple. It only takes two people talking to make noise and wake people up at night.
So you hear that now?
If they do, and I'm saying, the occasional, one or two people who might be walking by on the sidewalk having a conversation, but if you're putting a destination here that people will be entering and exiting, should the business be successful on a nightly basis, then it'll be happening every single night, and not just, once, but in and out all night long until 2 or 3 in the morning. I mean, that would be the aim if the business is successful, correct?
Correct. But again, it's limited numbers. We're not talking about a large capacity here. It's small space. It's intended to be discrete space. It's not as if there's going to be people hanging out on the street. That's not the intent. That's not the style.
Don't you intend to have an occupiable space outside, like a garden space that people would be able to sit in?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Wasn't there an intent to have space for people to sit outside on the Florida Avenue?
We can work with you on that. I mean, we can work with you 1 hour. We can work with you on that.
Yeah, so it's the 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning issue where people are trying to sleep, and it does sound quite loud. I think it's because there's so many hard services, but it does sound quite loud, and it keeps people up at night. And so it's the late hours that you're targeting that I think are particularly alarming, because it's something that, makes it difficult for everyone in the building to sleep.
I mean, we certainly understand the increased sensitivity to outside space. In terms of inside space, the hours, as has already been pointed out, are not different than any of the other establishments in the neighborhood, including a couple on that same block.
I don't have any other businesses that bring people to sit right outside my bedroom window at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. As I told you, we understand the increased sensitivity to the outside space. We got that.
All right. Thank you.
Certainly work with you on that.
Okay, is there anyone, there were some hands up, but those may have been from previously. Alan, Lee Farmer and Lee Carter, Jim Ball, George Bowman. Dennis, Gordon, if you're back on the line, you had sent a message to me saying you're back on, or you sent a message to the chat, rather.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, are you able to promote Dennis there? He has his hand up. He's been wanting to speak for some time now. There we go. Thank you. Dennis, go ahead.
Thanks a lot. So I have a question. There's a summer garden listed and the sidewalk cafe listed. They have different hours, and there's live entertainment on the summer garden. That goes until 2 a.m. That's the request. The sidewalk cafe stops at 11 p.m. Is the summer garden on the roof?
No, the summer garden is in the area closest to the building. Correct, KJ?
So
They're on the ground.
that's correct. The summer garden and the sidewalk cafe are right next to each other, essentially?
Correct. Correct.
Thank you.
The only other business of a similar nature on Vernon Street is actually on 18th at Vernon, and it does take people off of the outdoor space, the patio, at like 10 o'clock at night. I mean, it does not put people outdoors on our street till 2 or 3 in the morning. So even though you say that there are other businesses that do this, they don't do it, that late at night. So I'm just.
Are you referring to Lucky Buns?
Yes. I mean,
okay. I know that, so just so you know, to use factual information, the voluntary agreement on that building allows for the patio to be open till 12 during the week, and on Friday and Saturday it is till 1 a.m. Now, whether the restaurant uses the full extent of those hours, that is their determination. But to be clear, the voluntary agreement signed by the neighborhood and Dennis James, and actually supported by Alan Roth back in the day, was to have that. I'm just trying to keep.
Okay. So we'll say midnight and 1, and it's also on 18th Street, not a couple doors down on Vernon. It is on 18th, which isn't much, So it's on 18th Street, and it is midnight and 1, not 2 and 3. So we're all clear.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Anita and others who are concerned, especially for those of you who aren't aware of sort of the general way that these things work, because of the time limits for filing a protest, frequently what happens is that the ANC protests a license with the idea that we can sit down and have substantive conversations about a lot of the issues that have been raised tonight. And that's part of the reason that we wanted to have this on the committee agenda, was to hear what the neighbors were particularly concerned about. And in the process of that, frequently we come to a settlement agreement with the licensee that puts this into language that provides sufficient assurance and protection for the neighbors to feel comfortable with it going forward. And that's always been the posture that ANC 1C has taken with folks as when we're in a protest situation, is that we make every good faith effort to try to come to an agreement that is livable for both the licensee, who has to make enough money to make the business a going venture, and to the neighbors who have to be able to enjoy the quiet enjoyment of their homes. So I really appreciate all the points that people have brought out, because it helps refine our ability to discuss it further with the licensee. Did we have any other hands, Amir?
We have no new hands. So if anyone else would like to speak, go ahead and unmute your line and go ahead and chime in. Otherwise,
yeah, I'd point out that we're getting to 8:45 now, so it's getting to be close to a 2-hour meeting. Because we didn't hear about this 10 days before this scheduled meeting, we didn't get out what under our bylaws is required for prior notice to the community before we take actions. Because the committee action is not something that is really substantive the way the full ANC action is, my posture tonight is that I don't believe that the committee should be making a decision other than forwarding this to the full ANC to get it on the agenda, to give everybody plenty of notice that we're going to be deciding it at the August meeting, and not make a specific recommendation by the committee at this point in time. Because we didn't give the notice, and we aren't within either of the two exceptions to that notice requirement, in that there will be no imminent benefit or harm to the community by making a committee recommendation as opposed to awaiting the ANC full meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would echo that. That sounds right. And thank you so much, Ted, for still allowing us to discuss this matter. I'm very excited to further discuss it in August. My question does relate to, will we be able to have a settlement agreement and vote on a settlement agreement at the same time? Or what's our game plan here?
My guess is, particularly since they're just in their building phase, and for example, tomorrow they're getting their sound person in, I really don't anticipate that we're going to be in a situation to come to settlement terms before our August meeting. And we have to make a decision on the protest at the August meeting in order to maintain a place at the table to work on a settlement agreement. The other piece that we have is with the COVID situation. ABRA is not working the way ABRA used to work. So I'm not sure what the time frame is compared with back in the old days. And maybe Andrew can give us a little briefing on what's going on.
Yeah, what would be the inhibitor of coming to a settlement agreement before that time?
Well, they're getting their expert out there tomorrow. The meeting is 3 weeks from now. The way experts work and the large number of neighbors who are concerned suggests to me that we're not going to get a settlement agreement done in that time.
I just feel like we've done
if
things.
If we can, that would be wonderful, Japer. But,
yeah,
practically, I'm really doubting it.
Okay. Okay. I mean, to me, is the applicant interested in pursuing a settlement agreement expeditiously?
Yeah, we're certainly interested in working with you to see. I think we understand the issues. I think they've been fleshed out pretty completely tonight, and we'd certainly look forward to working with the ANC to see what might get resolved.
So if we, by the way, Andrew, are you aware, are they even having hearings? Every time I look at their notices, all they're saying is that they're setting all the hearings over.
Yeah, they haven't been having them as of late. It's unclear as to how it will proceed and whether at some point they may move to virtual hearings.
Are they at least having roll calls virtually?
I think so, but I'm not.
Okay, thanks. I just
sure.
This is such a crazy time. It's
yes, it is
hard to know what we're doing or how we're doing it. But I would like to thank everyone who showed up for this and everyone who articulated their concerns. That's very helpful to us. I think it's also helpful to the applicant.
It is. Thank you.
And we'll be going forth with this, and it will be on the agenda for the August ANC meeting. And with that, I would call this meeting to a close, and everyone go out and, excuse me, everyone leave their computers and stretch your legs or whatever. Anyway, good night, folks.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask. Absolutely.
Thanks.